In this particular challenge, we've asked you to write structured exception handling. And within your error handling, we've asked you to catch the invalid cast exception. The provided code will generate the invalid cast exception if you execute the application right now. The reason being is the way we've done the assignments of the values within this code. We have created one variable that is of type integer, and we've stored a value of 32 in it. We've also created an object variable called objValue. Remember that all of our reference types in C# ultimately inherit from the system.object class. So object becomes a generic reference type. Because all types ultimately inherit from system.object, that means that we can also assign any values that we create in our application to an object type. So we're taking our integer value and we're assigning it to a new object value. So we're changing the type during this assignment. We're changing it from an int to an object. What Visual Studio does in the background is actually convert our integer value into a system.int32 type. Finally, we create a string variable called strValue. The particular line of code that's going to generate this error is this last line of code here. We attempt to take the value that is stored in our object variable objValue, and by using an explicit cast, and this is what the parenthesis in the data type in the parenthesis means, it's an explicit cast, we attempt to cast that object variable to a string variable. So if we were to execute this code right now, we will generate an unhandled exception. We asked you to create structured exception handling. This is what we are going to do. So the first thing we need to do is wrap our code inside the try block, which provides that protected code for us. So we will type the keyword try. We get our open curly braces. I'll delete that one for just a moment because we want to reposition it here. That wraps this line of code within the try block, which means this becomes the protected line of code. So strValue equals string cast objValue. This is wrapped in try, it's protected. This is what will generate the error. Following the try, we want to enter a catchphrase. As we open the parentheses for our catchphrase, we want to catch a specific exception. Remember, it's always best to capture specific exceptions first and generic exceptions later. In this case, what we're looking to do is catch an invalid cast exception. Always use IntelliSense to help you complete a lot of your typing and to bring up the appropriate exceptions or methods or what have you that are available. So we'll accept the default that's selected for us, which is invalid cast exception. Now we also need to give it some kind of a variable name that we can reuse in our catchphrase within the body of that here in just a moment. I'm just going to use a generic one called EX for the time being. And I create the body of my catchphrase, and within the catchphrase body, this is where I want to output the message to the window. So console.writeLine. And in this case, we want to output the message of the error that gets generated. This is where our EX variable comes into play. So we type in EX, which is of type invalid cast exception. Pressing your dot operator brings up the list of member variables, or properties in this case, with the little wrench symbols, and methods that we have available. We want the message option, which gets a message that describes the current exception. So we will type in message using our auto-completion with the tab key, finishing off our statement with the semicolon, and now we should catch the invalid cast exception and output that information to the console window. Control F5 will verify. And here is our message, unable to cast object of type system.int32 to type system.string. So we have achieved